My daughter just slapped my son across the face over my jewelry box at my own funeral, while my body, well, what they think is my body, is lying right there in white roses. But honey, here's the twist that's about to send them straight to hell. I am not dead. I'm in the choir loft with popcorn, and when that lawyer reads my will, the only thing dying in this church is their inheritance. I'm Shannon Taylor, and right now I'm perched in the choir loft of Grace Presbyterian Church in Charleston, watching my own memorial service turn into a cage match. My son Brown just shoved my daughter Nicole into the flower sprays over a diamond brooch that's been in our family 5 generations, the one pinned to my dress the day I married their daddy. That casket down there with my name on it, honey, I've got plans for that reveal. And tomorrow morning when I walk into probate court alive and breathing, they're gonna wish they'd visited me even once in 3 solid years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Revenge takes marinade time. It takes patience. It takes a steady hand and a tongue sharp enough to slice through silk. Some of y'all will say I crossed a line. Others, you'll be taking notes with a highlighter. Now, before we go any further, do me a sweet favor. Comment where you're watching from and hit that subscribe sugar, because when that lawyer breaks the seal on that manila envelope, manners die and the truth starts preaching. Now, back to the day the silence began. Brown and Nicole pulled up in Brown's Mercedes, the one I co-signed after divorce number 2, like a fool paying for polish on a rotten apple. They didn't come inside. They honked like I was a FedEx parcel that grew legs. "Mama, we need to talk," Nicole said when I climbed into the back. She had on my grandmother's pearls, borrowed 6 months earlier. Her nails were French-tipped and expensive. Isn't it funny how the negligent always find time for upkeep? Brown drove quiet with that jaw of poured concrete, the decision made, mother doesn't matter jaw. I'd seen it when he quit college, when he walked out on his first family, when he told me, "I'll call you right back," and never did. We turned in at Riverside Care and Rehab, and my stomach fell through the floorboards. "It's temporary," Nicole lied, patting my hand like I was preschool and she was patience. "Just until we figure out a better arrangement." Temporary tasted like spoiled milk. Brown finally spoke. "We cleaned out your house, put it all in storage. You'll be comfortable here." They cleaned out my house, the one I paid off baking fundraiser pies and working double shifts, the one where I rocked them through croup and eased their daddy into heaven while they were too busy to hold a hand. I wanted to yank those pearl beads one by one until truth spilled out. I wanted to break open something loud enough to wake sense. Instead, I walked in with my dignity and signed forms no decent child would have let me sign alone. The first month was hell. I sat by the window every visiting day and made excuses for children who forgot my face. Families came with chrysanthemums and hugs. Sons wheeled their daddies out into the sunshine. I got drafts, the night screams from the dementia wing, and cafeteria coffee that smelled like burnt pennies. My roommate was a sweetheart named Gladys, who thought she was her sister Eleanor. She told me the same 3 stories about a man named Harold who either loved her or didn't. Memory plays cruel cards. When the fluorescents buzzed and the linoleum hummed, I whispered to myself the names of everyone I had ever fed, laundered, cheered, or forgiven, and promised not to forget me too. Then I noticed her, Maureen Douglas, night shift, early 30s, warm brown eyes, hair pulled back practical. She sang while she worked, humming old hymns like stitched up prayers. She never rushed. She called me Miss Shannon, even when she was the one holding the world together with bobby pins and kindness. The night I couldn't get my breath, panic like bees in my chest, Maureen sat on the edge of my bed and held my hand until my heart settled into its proper rhythm. "You're okay, Miss Shannon," she whispered. "I'm here. You're not alone." 4 words. You're not alone. I cracked open like spring thunder. Maureen let me cry clean, no apology required. Month 2, I paid attention. Maureen worked 3 jobs, riverside nights, diner mornings, private home care on weekends to keep her little girl, Jazz, in shoes that didn't whistle and her mama in blood pressure pills. She smuggled me real coffee when the machine croaked. She remembered I like my eggs scrambled soft and my toast buttered to the corners. She asked about my life before Riverside like I was a person, not a deposit. Month 3 brought the anvil. Stage 3 cancer. I called Brown 12 times. His voicemail? "If it's important, text." I called Nicole till my finger cramped. She answered over smoothie blender roar. "I have cancer," I said. Silence. Then, "Oh, Mama, I'll call you back after hot yoga." She never did. That night, Maureen tucked a blanket under my feet, sat with me through the doctor's speech and the nurse's needles, and sang, "Great is thy faithfulness," low enough to stitch my ribs together. She wasn't blood, but she showed up. And sometimes that's the only DNA that matters. Chemo rolled in like dirty tides. I lost hair, patience, and 70% of my illusions, but I did not lose Maureen. When the scans finally said remission, she brought a cupcake with 1 candle and said, "Make a wish you can live with." I wished for courage. And once I could breathe without counting seconds, I turned that courage into a plan. I wanted justice, not a felony. So I called Richard Patterson, my lawyer of 30 years, the only man in town who knows where I buried both the hatchet and the handle. "Shannon," he said, taking the stiff chair beside my bed at Riverside, "what's going on?" "I'm changing my will," I said. "Everything goes to Maureen Douglas. Brown and Nicole get exactly what they've given me. Nothing." His eyebrows went up like porch awnings in a storm. "They'll contest." "They can try," I said, sweet as store-bought tea. "I have 3 years of nurse logs, 47 unreturned voicemails, and a phone bill that could be entered into the Book of Lamentations." He nodded slow. "We'll do it right. 2 independent capacity evaluations, notarized signatures, video of you reading the dispositive sections, and a no-contest letter ready for the press if they start slinging mud." "Sugar," I smiled. "We're not just doing it right, we're going to stage it right." Define stage. I want a closed casket memorial, not a funeral. No forged papers, no clerk in trouble, just a church service the whole town can't resist. Then we invite whoever we please to the will reading, plus Maureen. Richard rubbed his temples. "It's dramatic." "It's honest," I said. "They grieved the inconvenience of me years ago. Let them grieve the consequences now." He took notes. "We do not file a death certificate. We rent a casket. The bulletin calls it a service of remembrance for the life of Shannon M. Taylor." That keeps us on the right side of the clerk's office. The mortuary will hate me." "The mortuary owes you," I said. "You got their nephew out of that fireworks citation." He sighed. "Fine, but the legal teeth come from evidence, not theater. We'll assemble a release packet. Your sworn video statement, notarized and time-stamped, affidavits from nurses and staff regarding missed visits, printed call logs and voicemails, copies of any forged checks or unauthorized charges, a sealed letter to the probate judge explaining today's memorial to avoid administrative confusion, and a press letter we hope we never need. Make a copy for Reverend Peters. He'll clutch pearls if we don't warn him." Next, I called Patty. We hadn't spoken in 15 years over a bourbon pecan pie recipe and a man with more charm than sense. She walked into Riverside like the past owed her an apology. "You look terrible," she said, sitting. "I had money on you outliving me." "I had cancer," I said. She blinked. "What are Brown and Nicole doing to help?" I'll let the silence answer. Patty's face went as hard as crystals sugar-heated too long. I never did like those two, spoiled country club brats. "You ready to even the books?" "I'm staging a memorial today, revealing tomorrow, and leaving everything to Maureen." Patty grinned with all her teeth. "Need logistics?" "I need a spotter in purple who can cry on cue and play dumb better than the devil plays the fiddle. And I need someone to help me map the church, the old crying room balcony over the fellowship hall." "Already there," she said. "I rocked half this town's babies up there back when nursery was 3 hymnals and a peppermint. There's a narrow servant stair behind the choir riser. We'll scout it, run it twice, and stash you up top before the prelude." I squeezed her hand. "Why help me?" She looked out the window. "Because when Donnie left me in '98, you changed the locks and poured me coffee till the shaking stopped. When Brown borrowed my silver and pawned it, you bought it back without telling me, then wore it to Easter and handed it to me in the church parking lot. And because some debts live longer than pride." We hugged like we meant it. Maureen tried to talk me out of the spectacle. "Miss Shannon, you don't need fireworks. You already have the truth." "I do, but they won't hear truth until it's mic'd and amplified." She shook her head, then packed me a granola bar in case adrenaline used up my breakfast. "If they come at you, I'm in between." "Child, you've been in between me and storms for a year. Let me be thunder once." We booked Grace Presbyterian. Reverend Peters agreed to a service of remembrance, which is church speak for a memorial with soft edges. The bulletin said, "Closed casket at the family's request." The mortuary parked the rental oak up front and laid white roses thick as frosting. Nicole always said white roses were too plain. That's why I chose them. Richard finalized the will 6 months ago after 2 doctors affirmed capacity. He filmed me reading the dispositive sections into a camera, hand steady, eyes clear. He bundled my nurse logs, printed the unreturned call history, and tucked copies of country club checks Nicole signed in my name into a red folder labeled "In case they contest." He also wrote a sealed letter to the probate clerk. "The decedent is not deceased. Memorial only. Please expect appearance in person to avoid administrative error." "Decedent?" I asked.
"Lawyer's got a lawyer," he said. "By the time the prelude started today, every hinge in that church knew which way it would swing. So here I sit, high in the choir loft, like a vengeful alto watching Charleston do what Charleston does best, dress grief in pearls and gossip in black crepe. The casket, empty, gleams under lilies and rose. The program calls me pillar, mother, faithful servant of God. I'll accept 2 out of 3 depending on the weather. The sanctuary is standing room only. Not because they loved me, but because small towns have big appetites. Brown checks his phone like the market owes him an apology. Nicole reapplies lipstick and pretends she's sobbing into a designer bag that costs more than Maureen brings home in a month. Her husband, Greg, yawns his mouth so wide you could park Rumor in there and charge admission. Brown's wife, Tammy, is veiled like a Tennessee Williams understudy and sniffling into a handkerchief she stole from me 2 Christmases ago and returned after I threatened to call the police. I see you, Tammy. I see you clear. Then the back doors open and God bless her, Patty walks in wearing purple, not black. The whole congregation inhales. She sashays to the casket, leans in and stage whispers, loud enough for 5 pews to hear. Shannon Marie Taylor, you stubborn old goat. If you can hear me, I told you would outlast us all. You better not be pretending just to win the pie argument. Then she slaps her own mouth shut to keep the laugh from echoing in. Richard, posted near the aisle with his briefcase, bites the inside of his cheek to hide a smile. He knows Act 2 is the fellowship hall. Reverend Peters keeps his homily short and kind, more balm than sermon. He says, a service for the living, looking square at Brown and Nicole and then at the rest of this curious city. A time to tell the truth with gentleness. Amen, I whispered. To nobody and to everybody. As soon as the benediction lands, Brown stands before the final amen finishes. Let's get the will reading over with, he mutters, all pretense dropped like last season's sins. They file into the fellowship hall where locals have eaten more deviled eggs than any cardiologist would advise. Richard is already at the head table with the envelope that holds my last words on paper. Patty slips out the side and up the servant's stair to check my route. I take the back steps down from the loft and slide into the old crying room balcony overlooking the fellowship hall. The glass is gone, but the view is perfect. Nobody looks up when they're looking for money. Before we begin, Richard says, tapping his glasses into place, Mrs. Taylor left instructions on attendance. Brown waves. Immediate family only. And Maureen Douglas, Richard adds without sugar, the temperature falls 20 degrees. If looks could unbaptize, Nicole just unsaved the whole room. The help at our family reading, she spits, per Mrs. Taylor's written instruction, Richard says. The door opens. Maureen steps in wearing the simple black dress I bought her last Christmas when Riverside pretended uniforms were supposed to unravel. She clutches her purse and her self-control and looks at nobody but the floor. Her eyes are swollen from real crying. Just read, Nicole says, brittle and bright. Richard glances upward. He can't see me in the balcony. Shadows are a mercy, but he knows I'm there. I give him the nod he's been waiting for. Very well, he says. I, Shannon Marie Taylor, being of sound mind and will spare the preamble. The will leaves the entirety of the estate to Maureen Elena Douglas. You could hear a moth land on a Bible page.
Nicole's champagne glass meets the cinder block wall. Shatter. Tammy screams. Greg jumps like the Holy Ghost tapped him with a cattle prod. What? Nicole's voice peels paint. That's impossible. I am her daughter. Brown knocks his chair over, standing. This is manipulation. Elder abuse. Oh, baby boy, now you care I was sick? Richard doesn't blink. Mrs. Taylor executed this will 6 months ago, following 2 independent capacity evaluations. Both doctors' affidavits are notarized and on file. There's also a video of her reading the dispositive sections, which I am prepared to play. 6 months? Brown sputters. She's been plotting this for 6 months? Richard sets the briefcase on the table and opens the red folder marked Release Packet. There's more. If either of you contests, I am directed to release the following: a sworn, notarized video statement for Mrs. Taylor describing 3 years of neglect. Nursing logs from Riverside documenting 0 visits on birthdays, Christmas, and during her chemotherapy. Phone records and a transcript of 47 unanswered voicemails. Photocopies of country club checks signed in Miss Taylor's name by Miss Nicole Taylor without a power of attorney on file. Nicole goes paper white. That's slander. That's evidence, Richard says gently, and it will be filed publicly if you make me. Maureen swallows but keeps standing. I never asked Miss Shannon for anything, she says, voice steady as fence posts. She helped my little girl with school supplies. She taught me to read medical bills without crying. She told me I was family, even when I felt like nobody's anything. Brown points at her, rage and the last myth of entitlement boiling. You saw an old woman in her checkbook. Back up, Richard warns, that old courthouse ice in his tone. Right now. Brown keeps on. We'll tie this up for years. You'll never see a dime. You can certainly try, Richard says, but we've already noticed the court about the memorial structure today to avoid confusion, and we are prepared to file Mrs. Taylor's affidavits, the nurse's affidavits, and a request for sanctions if the contest is frivolous. Brown sneers. Sanctions? Against me? Against anyone who wastes the court's time, Richard says. Also, he taps the red folder. There's a sealed press letter. I'd hate to mail it. I really would. Nicole's voice goes small. Where is Mama? Where is... That, Richard says, is Act 2. My cue. I stand from behind the balcony rail. The room looks up as one creature with one mind and 100 sins. Surprise, babies. Nicole drops her cup. Coffee baptizes the tile. Brown turns the color of old paste. Tammy faints for real this time, straight down like curtain call, while Greg flutters around her like a confused moth. For a beat, the only sounds are the ceiling fan squeak and my heels taking the back stairs slow and steady. I walk into the fellowship hall like I own every second of oxygen in it, because today I do. Mama, Nicole whispers, voice cracking into 7 useless pieces. But the casket. I said, you saw what you came to see, a problem solved. Who's in the casket? Brown breathes. Nobody, I said. It's a memorial. A closed casket remembrance. No paperwork filed. No clerk misled. The only thing buried today is pretense. This is unhinged. This is, I answered, strategic, until he leaned back without meaning to. 3 years I sat by a window at Riverside while other people's children brought chrysanthemums and bad coffee, and my people brought excuses. Do you know what silence does to a person, Brown? It sands her down to splinters. My voice cracks. I let it. I had cancer, your mother, and you did not know because you did not care enough to ask. Mama, if we'd known, Nicole begins. If you had visited, you'd have known, I cut in, calm as a scalpel. If you had called back even once. Maureen sat through chemo with me while you were at hot yoga, perfecting your apology muscles. Brown, I turn. You spent weekends spishing at my lake house with a 26-year-old assistant. Tammy's head snaps up from the floor like Salvation has a middle name. What? Oh, did he not tell you? I smile sweet. He's been catching something all right. Might need a course of antibiotics. The room goes pandemonium. Tammy pointing, Nicole crying, Greg calculating whether he can back slowly into a different life. Richard clears his throat. To summarize the options, accept the will and we shake hands with dignity, or contest and I file the packet. affidavits, recordings, checks, logs, and Mrs. Taylor's sworn video. Additionally, I will request the court award fees for bad faith litigation. And if we accept, Brown says, deflated, you keep your freedom from headlines, I say, and maybe if the Lord feels generous, you keep a fraction of your reputations. Nicole gathers herself into a new shape called shame and sits. Mama, the pearls. Give 'em here, I say, not unkindly. Her hands shake, but she unclasped them from a neck that didn't earn them. I turn to Maureen and fasten them at her throat. These belong to family now, real family, the kind that shows up. I take Maureen's hands. You earned every penny you didn't ask for. You were a daughter when mine rehearsed busyness. You are my people. She sobs once, a sound like a knot untying, and hugs me tight. I look past her at Brown. The lake house? Under contract. A Mount Pleasant family with 3 kids who visit their grandparents every single Sunday will be squealing off that dock by June. His mouth opens, then closes. Surrender is a quiet language. And one last housekeeping note. I glance at Nicole. Those checks from the country club in my name, I printed them. I know every number, every date. Do not make me file things I'd rather keep folded in love. Her face collapses into something that could grow into a person if watered properly. I'm sorry, she says. I nod once. Sorry is step 1. Step 2 is different. We gather ourselves like women always do, swiftly, efficiently, while the men are still deciding what it all means. I loop my arm through Maureen's. Patty stands beside us, proud as a porch. We're finished here, I say. Maureen and I are going to Costa Rica next month. I plan to eat mango every morning, teach her little girl Jazz to swim without fear, and fall asleep to a fan that squeaks in Spanish. We turn to go. The room watches us leave, and for once, I let them. Oh, I add, looking back at Tammy and Greg, if y'all decide to fix what's broke or to break what can't be fixed, I know a couple of lawyers, good ones. Shannon, Richard says softly, almost to himself, you did this clean. Clean as a Sunday dress, messy as grace. Subscribe if you believe in karma served ice cold with sweet tea and documentation. I've got more tales where the inheritance isn't cash, it's consequences. I'm Shannon Talon, and I'm living proof the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served alive. Thank you so much for listening. See you in our next story.